Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Art of MMA. I hope you had a happy holidays. Obviously, happy New Year. I'm Mike Ginn. That's the mechanic, Brandon Catino. Welcome back. We got kind of a brand new format we're coming at you, but we were going to do a lot of wholesale changes. We decided not to because, quite honestly, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I'm not just going to be an Brandon will appreciate this reference. I'm not a WWE NXT 2.0. We're not just going to change to a big, colorful format just to make a change. If something cool comes up, we'll obviously keep progressing the show and trying to make it better and better for you at home. But that is that. Brandon, how was your holidays? How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. Holidays were good. You know, it's always good to spend time with the family. So that's always a plus size. Hopefully the holidays were good for you as well.
Yeah, I got a chance to, we had our mother-in-law close by. She was down in Miami, so we drove down back and forth in a day, which is a long drive. It's kind of like if I was living in D.C. and drove to New York and back home in the same day.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, that like 4-hour, 3.5-hour drive back and forth. So the drive wasn't fun, but it was good to go see family for a little bit and also still do our own thing down in Tampa for our first real Christmas in Tampa, because before that we were in D.C. last year for Christmas. So this was our first like full Christmas at home, which was kind of cool, kind of nice to be able to enjoy it. And, you got that. It's nice to see family, but it's also nicer to be in your own home for a holiday. So that was kind of cool.
Got that nice sunny weather for Christmas. You don't got snow up here like us.
No, not at all. And funny enough, I saw like everything that happened with the big snowstorm coming through like the last couple of days. And like in Virginia, where I used to live for a long time, they had a stretch of 95 that was shut down for hours. People were like stuck in traffic, stuck in the storm. So I'm definitely thankful for it was a little chilly here yesterday. It was like 65, 70.
Oh, yeah, a little chilly.
As Brandon's sitting there in his hoodie. Of course, this show is brought to you by Fighters First, FightersFirst.shop. And if you've been paying attention to our social media, we did start off the year with a big announcement. The Dynamite Kid, one of the best workers in the business, we now have him under officially licensed contract. So you can check out the Dynamite Kid collection on FightersFirst.shop. We got a couple designs up there. We're doing a bunch of different stuff with him. Down the road, I know a lot of people ask, we will do a British Bulldogs release, but we're going to do it as a special release. We're going to give Dynamite his own shine for a little bit, just like we gave Davey his own shine, and keep promoting them separately. And then we'll do a special release down the road. And with that notice, also, we're going to be interviewing the daughter of the late Dynamite Kid, Bronwyn Billington, soon. So look for that on the network as well for an episode of Unfiltered. But Brandon, that's the business side of things. Let's get back to the show. A couple things have happened since we were last on the air in November. Of course, brand new year. Looking forward to a bunch of new things. We did kind of switch up the format for a little bit. We're going to start talking about a more subject-oriented base instead of just, going through a news and a rant and talking about results and stuff like that. We will talk about some of the stuff that happened in the past. We'll obviously get our thoughts real quick on like Poirier and Oliveira and some of that stuff that we missed. But going forward, we're going to be talking about a few different subjects. And then, of course, Mr. Lead Dog over there, even though we're starting the year at 0-0, he did win the picks last year. Also, shout out to Dan Bakley, who won the picks for the guests. So we'll be doing our picks again this year once the events start up next week and start doing our picks as well. But more subject-oriented, trying to give you guys something a little bit different than you see on just every single other MMA show. And you guys really like Battleground. A couple comments I got here and there that me and Brandon were doing during the holidays. As far as I don't know if you're cool with it, Brandon, but I like to keep doing Battleground on the side, an episode here and there, especially when a cool subject comes up to debate. People seem to like it, so we'll keep bringing that back. But Art of MMA is our day job, and here we are. So, Brandon, real quick before we do jump into some of these subjects today, by the way, we will be talking about Nate Diaz versus Dustin Poirier. Will we ever see that fight? Will we not? Is it just a bunch of bullshit in the air, people just running their mouths? We'll talk about Dana versus Jake Paul, along with some other dumb beefs that are going on in MMA today. And then we'll finish up with a look ahead at 2022. Who's still going to be champion at the end of the year? What's some big things that we're looking forward to across the different promotions? So we'll look at that today. But Brandon, before we jump into that, we already talked about our holidays but we missed some great fights over the last few weeks. Just do a quick recap. Sergio Pettis with the great comeback against Hiraguchi. We also had Jose Aldo just continuing to turn back the clock against Rob Font. On that same card, Rafael Fiziev with another great knockout. Jamal Hill with another knockout over Jimmy Crute. He's got another fight lined up coming up. Of course, Oliveira Poirier. Oliveira with the stoppage. The upset heard around the world with Juliana Pena over Amanda Nunes. And there was some other great stuff in that card. I'm gonna give you a chance to talk about it. And then, of course, not just but a couple weeks ago, Derek Lewis with the knockout over Chris Dawkins. And then he threw his cup into the crowd. But it's Derek Lewis, right?
Hey, man.
Real quick,
somebody will buy it on eBay.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it's probably already on eBay or some auction site somewhere. Real quick, give me just some of your highlights from the month of December that we missed.
Of course, man, it's going to be the Oliveira Poirier fight. Of course, it's going to be that Pena Nunes. I was the one that was trying to say, hey, give Pena the
Amanda.
shot.
I can go back to our last episode. You picked Amanda.
Hey, I'm not saying.
I didn't even ask you. In fact, I went back and watched part of the last episode. Yeah, because I didn't even ask you. You were like, "Well, I know you're going to ask me," and you sat there and said, "I'm picking Nunez over Pena." I wasn't even going to ask you. I was just asking you about Oliveira and Poirier. You threw it out there,
but nah.
So don't act like you were on the Pena train the whole time.
Yeah, no, I'm hyped for that, and then also too, really
change the subject.
Probably really one of the biggest things that happened. Actually, besides the Sergio Pettis comeback victory, but also is that Bellator announced the bantamweight Grand Prix for this year. So
that's going to be awesome.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to that.
That's going to be awesome. And I would honestly say, if it wasn't for the year that Kamaru Usman had with the multiple defenses and just a dominant year over every top contender, Sergio Pettis would be right up there with him, and Oliveira would be right up there with Fighter of the Year contenders. Sergio Pettis, of course, winning the belt against Archuleta, later on defending it against Hiraguchi, and then he's going to have a big year next year with the Grand Prix that you mentioned, or this year coming up with the Grand Prix. We can talk about that later on when we talk about stuff to look forward to. We couldn't Juliana Pena shocked the world, right? Like, she sat there, called her shot, and I think, and I'm sure I'll get a lot of backlash for this, I think if they fought 10 times, Amanda wins 9 of them. I don't think she had a good night. I think she was off her game, whether it was COVID related, whether she never took Pena seriously, a million things that could be different. But that night, at that time, Juliana Pena took over. She did what she had to do. She punched Amanda right in the face. That jab was working. And then by the time she got her down to the ground, Amanda was already defeated. She was already defeated. She was already done by the time she put that tap out in. And also on that card, I think Sean O'Malley stamped his roadmap into the contenders at that point. I think Sean O'Malley, who hasn't really fought a top contender before Paiva, and obviously the match against Chito Vera would probably be a rematch most people want to see. But Sean O'Malley is must-see TV. And at this point, whether you like him or hate him, I think he's got to be fighting at least a top 10 opponent his next fight, whether he wants to or not. In whatever state they want him to, whether he wants to or not. I think Dana has to force that card at this point because, he's running through everybody else at that point. Of course, Tua Tagovailoa just knocking everybody out. Dominic Cruz with a really nice performance against Pedro Munoz. Just some of the things we've missed. And then also a fight, nobody really looked at. Derek Lewis, if he's not in a title fight, he's knocking you out. As long as he's not in a title fight, right? What do you think about Derek Lewis, like his situation?
He's just the guy that's always that to me he can beat.
He's going to stay a top 3 contender.
Yeah, I don't know really unless he really gets his conditioning up to par, like you said, man, 3-round fights is where he's at. But some of his fights don't even need to go, 5 rounds, man. It's just like, can you even make it past 3? Because Cyril Gane took him out in the 3rd round.
Yeah,
So
he doesn't want to go 5 rounds. He told him,
yeah,
he said he doesn't want to be the main event. He's
yeah.
like, just give me 3 rounds. Anything more than that, I don't want to do it. I think honestly, what happened in Houston, he came out flat. It was his hometown. I think there was too much pressure on him, and I don't think he handled it. Because any other fight, like against Chris Daukaus, he had no pressure. Chris Daukaus is an up and coming contender. Not anymore. I mean, he's gonna have to bounce back with a few wins before we start talking about him again. We were talking about him, at least I was, as possibly next Cyril Gane because of the way he moved in that cage. Now he's got to go back to the drawing board because Derek Lewis punished him. So I think Derek Lewis is kind of like that Joseph Benavidez at this point. Like maybe not the title, but he's going to beat everybody else, which really it's almost like a bodyguard for the title, right? Because like Ngannou and Cyril Gane don't have to worry about a lot of these contenders because Derek Lewis is knocking them off before they get to him.
Yeah.
Like you got to get through Derek Lewis if you want to get to these big guys. So that'll be interesting. We'll talk about all that coming up because obviously Ngannou and Gane coming up later this month. We got Figueiredo and Moreno coming up later this month. A lot of stuff to do. But let's get into the show. Let's talk about a couple subjects real quick. Right off the bat, I even hate to even talk about this kind of, but when you look at it, Dustin Poirier versus Nate Diaz. Dustin's like, I already agreed to the fight at a location, at a date. Of course, Nate Diaz coming out trying to like brush over the subject with a little bit of humor, right? It's like I called the UFC. They said no fight because you suck. Kind of what Nate Diaz does, right? He talks more on social media than he does in the fight. The last time we saw him was what? Edwards, the Edwards fight. And he got his ass kicked for 4 rounds, had one good round at the end when Edwards was trying to coast and he caught him with a shot. And honestly, if he hadn't been showboating as much in the 5th round, he could have probably finished Edwards, but he didn't. He was sitting there like going, haha, look what I did to you. And instead of just like fighting, I think Nate Edwards. I think Nate Diaz at this point is more of a spectacle, right? He's more of like, I don't want to say Conor McGregor, but he's kind of in that boat, right? Because you're not going to put him in a title fight. Dustin Poirier coming off a title lost. So now he can kind of go back to fighting some of his grudge matches against like Nate and Conor and some of the other things. I think the biggest thing this whole thing brings out of losing to Oliveira is that now Dustin is free, right? You can get Dustin out of that whole title talk for a little bit. He can go and fight whoever he wants because there's no contender. There's nothing on the line. It's just him fighting. Hell, I'd be in favor of them having like another BMF belt if Dustin and Nate ever fought. Do you think that fight's ever going to happen? And if so, like what would happen in that fight?
I don't think this fight happens unless Nate Diaz signs an extension with the UFC. The UFC doesn't want to give him this fight because he only has one fight left on his contract. He's done with this fight. He's moving on. Well, whatever happens. But to me, like I said, that's why word is, oh, they want to give him Chimaev. They want to try to give him they want to give him Chimaev. They like they only want to give him Luque. Luque wants to fight. And I think Diaz was even down to fight Luque, but they don't want to give it to him. They don't like I said. For some reason, the UFC don't want to give him the fights that he wants. They want to give him the fights that they want. Like I said, this fight was in talks like years ago. Was it like back in like 2019?
They've been talking about it for a long time.
Yeah, you know where the thing was that both these guys were going to come in at 165 to fight. You know, they don't care if it was going to be a 155 fight. They were both going to show up at 165. But again, the fight never happened. You know, like I said, for whatever reason, like I said, the UFC they don't want to offer this fight to those guys. Like I said, maybe it would happen if they knew that they had Nate Diaz for a longer time. Maybe they would give it to him. But like you said, I mean, unless he signs an extension with them, I don't think this fight's going to happen. But if this fight does happen, I'm rocking with Dustin Poirier. I think he would beat Diaz. I'm not sure if he would stop him, you know, but I think
he would punish Diaz.
Yeah,
and I honestly I don't think
Diaz
Dustin's
is a tough guy.
I don't think Dustin's making it up. Like I think he really does have a fight agreed to fight Nate Diaz with the UFC. I think it's Nate Diaz. Like I think he's 100% doesn't want to take this fight, and because he knows if he loses this fight, he can't talk shit anymore, right? Like against Edwards, nobody really gave him a chance. It was kind of like, all right, you're in there as a showcase because Edwards needs to be active. Like, he just needs to be active and fight if he wants the title next. And then that fight kind of almost derailed his title hopes because he looked so badly in the 5th round that UFC is like, well, let's give Covington another shot. I don't know if Leon Edwards will ever get his shot at Usman, to be honest. They're talking about it for the spring, but I don't know if it's going to happen. At this point, hell, Luque or Bilal Muhammad might jump ahead of Edwards. But, getting back to Dustin Poirier, Dustin has nothing to lose at this point. He's flirted with retirement a few times in the past couple years. He said multiple times he doesn't really enjoy the whole process of fight week, right? Like, he loves fighting. He doesn't enjoy the whole promoting the fight, the whole business aspect of things, weighing in, getting to this, doing that. He wants to just show up and fight somebody. And he's like, I can do that in the gym. I don't have to do that on a grand stage. I just want to fight. He's obviously all about his charities, though. Funny enough, I think it's a good side note. He offered Oliveira, I think, $20,000 or something for a local charity. Mm-hmm. And much like when Conor offered a bunch of money for Dustin's charity, Oliveira's like, I haven't seen any money. People are asking me. He hasn't sent the check yet. When he does, I'll let you know. So it's interesting to see if Poirier follows through on that, or if that was just something he was saying after the fight because he was kind of caught up in the moment. I don't think Dana White cares about Nate Diaz's contract. I mean, 1 fight, 10 fights. How many years has both Diaz brothers, but especially Nick, but like going without fighting? Like, Nate took a couple years off here and there. Like, Nate's had sabbaticals before too. I think they're more about running their mouth and enjoying the spotlight than they are actually stepping in the cage. When was the last time Nate Diaz looked really great in the cage? Like, do you remember? Was it the first Conor fight?
I mean, he had the Conor fights. I mean, the Masvidal fight was not good for him for the BMF title.
Masvidal, Leon Edwards. I mean, I honestly don't remember the last time he won a fight, with the exception of the first Conor fight. And maybe there's somebody at home can correct me. I don't have the stats right in front of me, but Dustin is the A side of this card, right? Like, Dustin is the guy who's been running through everybody, including Conor twice. I just don't see it. I don't see the fight ever happening. And if it does, I think it's Dustin all day. And I think it's just another attraction fight, special attraction fight for Nate Diaz. Are you looking up when the last time you won a fight? What was it?
Anthony Pettis.
Anthony Pettis. Okay, yeah. Pettis, 2 years ago.
2019, August.
Yeah, 2 years ago. I almost forgot about that. That was like one of Anthony Pettis' last fights. Maybe he had one more after that. I think he lost in December. Yeah. Or no, he won the fight in December and then left the promotion.
Like I said, he was like I said, Poirier and Diaz, they were supposed to fight I want to say November of 2018, and then it got canceled because I can't remember why. But
they have so much bad blood, and it's the fight people want to see because of all the shit talk for the last 3 or 4 years. And I don't think Diaz really wants that fight. I don't think he wants the smoke. So that is that. Let us know in the comments what you think. If they will fight, let us know who you think will actually win. Drop a comment on that. Over the next, this is almost a perfect segue too, Brandon. I call this segment Dumb Beefs. It's really about Jake Paul versus Dana White. Obviously a fight that can't happen. But I don't know, the holidays tend to bring out the crazy in the sport, right? You got Ariel Helwani going on a long rant on Dillon Danis, which I don't know why anybody gives Danis the time of day. He's like a 2-0 fighter. He's Nate Diaz Jr. He spent more time talking about fights than he's ever been in a fight. And the only claim to fame he really has is that he's Conor's boy. Like, that's it. Khabib jumped out of the cage to try to hit him. That's pretty much his claim to fame. Before we get into Jake Paul, let me get your thoughts real quick on that whole thing. Is there a backstory that I missed there, or is this just Ariel trolling Dillon Danis?
Honestly, man, I really don't know what it is. I mean, I don't know if Ariel Helwani could be sticking up for like Jake Paul, because I know Dillon Danis had said something about Jake Paul, and I remember listening to one of Ariel Helwani's shows. Like, he kind of was saying what Dillon Danis was saying was crazy, but I really don't get into Ariel Helwani's beef, man. That guy, I know that's your new like best bud over there, but
I just think he's funny at this point. Like, he's going hellfire on everybody since he left ESPN, trying to get that. What's the character he calls himself? Helwani.
Yep.
Yeah, he's trying to be the bad guy. He's trying to steal my gimmick. First of all, there's only one heel in this business. Okay, it's not you, Ariel. It's me. You need to stay in your lane, buddy. But that said, I don't rock a mask like he does, so maybe he does take it up another level. I'm kind of more subtle about it because, Brandon tries to be the good guy, but at some point we're going to do a double turn, and you're going to realize I actually am the babyface and he's the heel. But I'll play my role until it's time. But back to these dumb beefs. Another one is Mark Hunt, right? Mark Hunt's been in his legal lawsuit ever since he lost to Brock Lesnar. He went on to fight like 3 more times for the UFC. People don't realize this, even after the Brock Lesnar thing. And then, of course, his contract was up and he kind of went into retirement. People are like, oh, he hasn't fought since, like, I think it was 2018. I'm like, Mark Hunt is like 47, 48 years old. Mark Hunt stopped fighting at like 43, 44 years old. He fought his career. He's good. He's fought legends of this sport back in K1 days against like Ray Sefo and Crow Cop and all these other people, to now and his run in the UFC after they bought I think, who was he with? Strikeforce at the time when they bought him, or was it WEC? I think it was Strikeforce.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I feel like I know he was in Pride, wasn't he? And then he came over.
Yeah, maybe it was Pride, but it was one of the promotions UFC bought, and they kind of got stuck with his contract. And he could have sat it out. Dana was like, I'll pay you to stay home. And he's like, no, I want to fight. And then he had like a huge walk-off knockout, which one of obviously many highlights of Mark Hunt's career. And then now I guess the judge is saying, because it's still an appeal. The whole thing is still an appeal with the whole Brock Lesnar thing. But the judge ruled that he had to pay attorney fees or something like that. And his response was, I will fight Dana and the Fertita brothers all at the same time. You guys win, I will pay your fees. If you guys lose, you guys can see that everything I said was true. Of course, obviously that fight's never going to happen. There's not going to be a 3-on-1 MMA fight headlining the UFC event anytime soon. I have seen some of these crazy scramble events. I got who was it that I saw do it last? Like tag team MMA, and like they're doing it, but it's not really tag team. It's like everybody's in the cage at the same time.
Tornado tag team.
Yeah, like a tornado fight. Yeah. I think it would be kind of cool if they had like multiple cage doors or whatever, and somebody like reached up and tagged, and like somebody would come in the cage door, and like maybe they had like 2 or 3 seconds to like double team somebody, like real wrestling. But I don't think 2-on-2 or 3-on-3 or any of this multi-fight MMA fight stuff I've seen, it will ever be like mainstream. I think it's a gimmick, and I think it's dangerous at that, because you see how quickly a fight can get their lights turned out. One-on-one. Imagine if you never saw it coming from some guy who just came from the side and just knocked you out, cold cocked you. So I think that's dangerous, and I see why it's not licensed in many places. But all that, Brandon, brings us back to Dana White, Jake Paul, right? Let me get your thoughts on this, because we know the core element of all this is really fighter pay. It's been the subject for so many years. And of all people to champion the fighters, it's this YouTube star who's kind of made a name for himself, starting in celebrity boxing. Then he fought a couple legitimate fighters in Ben Askren and Tyron Woodley. But those are UFC guys. They're not real boxers. And in defense of Jake Paul, he was supposed to fight Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury pulled out with an injury. Supposed to happen right in my backyard. And then Tyron Woodley stepped up on short notice, took the fight, and got knocked out. But that said, I think this last fight, as long as you're not like part of the conspiracy theory that it's a fake fight, I think it did kind of cement Jake Paul as at least a legitimate fighter, if not a boxer. The way he set up that combo that ended up knocking out Tyron Woodley was actually pretty clever. I've heard some real boxers talk about it, how he kept jabbing to the body. So when he feinted to the body, the first thing that Tyron Woodley wanted to do was catch the punch. And it left his chin wide open. And night. You can see that video, by the way, on our Instagram. We do have it on our Reels. So go ahead and check that out. Also on our TikTok. I should start dropping the link to our TikTok. That's actually at Fighters First as well. So links in the show notes. If you want to see Jake Paul knock out Tyron Woodley all over again. Funny enough, the video on TikTok has like 15,000 views. Wow. I'm like, nice. People like us. Well, they like the highlight, but still our account. Anyway, check that out. A little shameless plug. Tell people at home, I've been doing enough talking. Tell people at home a little bit about what's going on with Jake Paul and Dana White now.
Yeah, I mean, like, usually, basically what happened was, like, I mean, which I'm kind of shocked that Dana White actually responded back to Jake Paul. But really what happened was, I guess, Jake Paul has always kind of been accusing Dana White of using drugs, of basically calling him a
cocaine.
So basically Dana White had responded back saying, like, hey, you know what? You can test me for, like, cocaine anytime you want for 10 years. If I can test you for steroids for 2 years. And then that's when Jake Paul kind of responded back and said, like, hey, I will retire from boxing and I will fight Jorge Masvidal in the UFC fight. But first, though, you have to meet these demands, which was, I think it was pay fighters more than 20% of revenue share.
He wanted them $50K too a fight.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Also too, he wants the minimum fight pay to be $50K instead of $12K and a couple of other things. Well, basically, like, Dana White, I mean, I think Jake Paul has responded with another thing, but then Dana White had kind of responded back, basically kind of talking bad about the guy who was, I think, Jake Paul's business partner with his MVP, and basically calling him a warlock and just calling him an accountant. But that guy used to be the CFO of the UFC, and he helped with the sell. So it's
exactly,
like, dude, how are you gonna bash this guy when the guy was just working for you and he was in a high spot, high level?
It's because he left Dana to go take more money to work for Jake Paul.
So I mean, it's just nonsense. I mean, the only thing that I really hope out of it is just, man, like I said, man, if the more times Jake Paul really talks about it, maybe his fans, like newer fans, kind of start spreading it out, that, like, start talking about that as well, about the pay being low. There may be somebody, like, regulators, federal people, maybe step in and kind of maybe force the UFC to kind of pay their fighters more money and get them a bigger cut.
And let's be clear, this has been going on long before Jake Paul. You can go back. Ken Shamrock's blackballed. A number of fighters, the legendary fighters, are blackballed from the UFC. They can't go to events. They can't do anything because they're talking about fighter pay, unionizing, and some other things that are like bad words. One bright side to this whole thing, though, is that if, for whatever crazy reason, Dana agreed to whatever terms and we saw Jake Paul versus Masvidal, Amanda Serrano, one of the greatest women's boxers ever, let alone fighting today, who's kind of become like Jake Paul's like protege almost, he's promoting the crap out of her and getting her the spotlight that she actually really does deserve. Wanted to fight Valentina Shevchenko. On paper, people might be like, what? A boxer versus Valentina will crush her. Amanda is undefeated as an MMA fighter as well. She only has, like, I think 3 or 4 or 5 fights or something like that. But
I think it's 3 fights. I think she's 3-0.
3-0. But she's fought MMA in a couple different weight classes. Boxing, she's fought like 6 or 7 different weight classes, maybe more at this point. She's kind of turning into the Manny Pacquiao of women's fighters, the way she's going up and down divisions, winning. But Amanda Serrano is a legitimate fighter who trains jiu-jitsu, who trains all these other different, her and her sister, like train all these different disciplines that make up MMA. She's not a stranger to it. So that fight with Valentina might be a little bit more competitive than y'all might give her credit for. And it definitely would be a traction fight, just as much as we want to see Alex Pereira versus Izzy, fight. It's the same thing. You got these great like strikers going toe to toe. And Valentina, one of her great traits is also one of her bad traits, is that she wants to beat you at what you're good at because she wants to prove how great she is. If she gets in a striking war with Amanda Serrano, it might be a short night for Valentina, because we saw her go toe-to-toe striking with Amanda, and that's actually probably why she lost the fight. If she had just kind of stuck with all her multi-dimensional attacks, like the different ways she can attack you, especially with her kicks and other things, she might have been able to beat Amanda. But she tried to go toe-to-toe with Amanda and get in these scraps with her instead of sticking to a strategy per se, right? Mm-hmm. So Valentina's kind of had that gunslinger mentality for a long time, where I'm going to beat you at what you're good at because I'm the greatest of all time. Well, you go into a fight with somebody like that, that'd be like anybody going into the PFL fighting Clarissa Shields and trying to box her. It's not going to end well for you. But if you take her down and do different things, then that's a different story. We don't know what Amanda Serrano would do on the ground. CM Punk knows how to do jiu-jitsu. It didn't help him much in UFC. And he trains at Rufus Sport, who's one of the best MMA camps. So who knows? But kind of wrapping this subject up, I think Jake Paul is obviously capitalizing on his moment of fame. He's been doing the YouTube thing for a long time. He's flirted at retirement from boxing a couple times already, because he's kind of ready to go. Like, boxing was supposed to be a joke to start off with him and Logan fighting a couple other YouTubers. And then he got to fight with Nate Robinson and made headlines when he knocked him out. Then he fought Ben, and then he fought Tyron twice. And I think this was supposed to start off as like just another adventure, right? For the Paul brothers, just something else to try in the sport, in the world, and then go on to the next adventure and the next enterprise and keep making money and keep doing crazy things to make views on YouTube. Excuse me. So I think his run is kind of getting over with that. He's talked about training with Javier Mendez and Khabib and trying to do MMA. Scott Coker's already said, I'd sign him in a heartbeat. He thinks the kid is getting better and better. I think Jake Paul is actually getting better as a fighter. And because he's taking it seriously when he trains, whether he does steroids or whatever else you want to say, because he's not really drug tested that well. Regardless, he actually is becoming a better fighter. People want to joke about how Tyron Woodley's almost 40 years old. I can't step into a fight with Tyron Woodley and knock him out. And I used to fight, 20 years ago. Like, I used to do a lot of martial arts and other stuff in boxing. He is still a former UFC champion at any age. He's still a dangerous man at any age. Somebody walking off the street is not going to walk into a ring with Tyron Woodley and knock him out, or even go 8 rounds with him. Tyron Woodley's going to punish you in the first round if you're somebody walking off the street. So even the fact that Jake Paul went with him 8 rounds the first time and then knocked him out the second time, whether you think the fight is legitimate or rigged really doesn't even matter either, because what happened was he stood in there with a UFC champion. And Brandon, for all his fight experience, I think you would struggle fighting Tyron Woodley. Like, Tyron Woodley's a champ. He, does he throw punches all the time? No. But you know what? He's still a former UFC champ. And as much as I've bashed Tyron Woodley in the past, people walking in off the street aren't going to beat a former UFC champ. So you got to give Jake Paul a little bit of credit as far as that goes. But that's Dumb Beef's Jake Paul versus Dana White. We're probably never going to hear the end of it, Brandon. That's pretty much just going to be two people. Dana always likes to find somebody in the media to kind of like go back and forth with. He always has to have beef with somebody to kind of drum up interest in the promotion. So he is a promoter, and he does what he does, right? He thinks he's Vince McMahon Jr.
Yeah,
I mean, but Vince McMahon the third.
But to me though, but Jake Paul is somebody that he can't beat. Like he can't shut Jake Paul up because Jake Paul doesn't work for him. Jake Paul isn't one of his fighters. Jake Paul doesn't care. Jake Paul can go on these roads. That's why I was so shocked that he responded, because it's like Jake Paul goes on Twitter and trolls everybody, and it's like, Dana, you're trying to step to him. But the thing is though, you can't troll Jake Paul. Like you can say whatever you want, but the dude is doing his thing. And he's speaking facts about you and your company, and which, of course, you then hide and then say, oh, well, if you think it's easy, do it yourself. But you're not denying any of the things that he's saying, you know? So that's why that's like I say, that's why I was shocked that he responded. But then plus two, though, he's gonna go on a rant with about the Warlock accountant. And it's like, dude, like this guy's big time CFL. So it's like, if you're bashing him like that, well, then how did he get to that level in the UFC? So are you trying to say that basically your company isn't really all that smart then, if you're going to let this guy be there? You know, so I mean,
like some guy I fired. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some guy you fired, you also hired.
Yeah. You know, and which of course too, he was a big part of the company being sold to Endeavor and everything like that. So I mean, like you said, we shall see what the rest of the year has in store for this whole thing.
You know, we talked about the last segment, Nate Diaz having one fight on his contract. Do you think if Nate Diaz fights out his contract that he'd fight Jake Paul, or do you think Jake would never take that fight?
I think Jake would take that fight. Jake wants that fight. He asked for Nate Diaz. He asked for Jorge Masvidal.
I mean, he threw a bunch of names that he knows under contract that Dana would never let him fight.
But still, you gotta remember all the guys. I mean, I don't know if me and you have talked about, but I've talked about other people. But if you look at those,
are you cheating on me, Brandon?
all those names that he's talking about, they're all welterweights. So all guys who fight at 170. You know, it's like why
that's another thing people forget. Jake Paul's a big kid. He's like he's a 200-pound fighter. He had to cut down to like 192 to fight Tyron Woodley, who fought a career at 170. Yeah. So I mean, so that, like, to me, that is why I think he would take the fight against Nate Diaz. That's why I think he would take the fight against Jorge Masvidal. Those guys fight at 170. He's not picking a 185er or a 205er. He's handpicking his opponents.
Yeah, like, I mean, that's why like I said, I'll be shocked, you know, if he really does pick Anderson Silva. Like, yeah, Anderson Silva's in his 40s, but he will still tune you up, you know. So
also, Anderson and Nate Diaz are the only ones that can kind of look almost eye to eye with him. Like, Masvidal's a little shorter. Masvidal's like 5'9", 5'10". Mm-hmm. He may be listed like 5'11" or something like that, but he's a couple inches shorter than that. Obviously, Tyron Woodley's 5'8", 5'9". Another guy listed at 5'10", but not quite. So you see it in the cage when Jake Paul, who's like 6'1", maybe even 6'2", like legitimately is towering over these guys. The weight may be the same, but you know from experience, you're a taller, lightweight fighter. You have that range on a lot of fighters because you're 6'1", 6'2", whatever it is, and but at fighting at 155 pounds, 160 pounds, you have the length and reach on a lot of these guys that are a little bit shorter. It's an advantage, and you'd be dumb not to exploit it if you can make the weight. You know, we've seen it in the past. I remember, what was the boxer that had the really bad accident we never saw again? Paul Williams, I think. He was like a 6 foot, but he was fighting at like 140 pounds or whatever, 150 pounds maybe. And he was just dominating people because he was so much taller than a lot of these little guys. And he had the reach and he could just knock them out. We see it with Stefan Struve in the heavyweights, right? Like a lot of the heavyweights, he had the advantage of, unless you get on the inside and knock him out. If he kept you on the outside, he punished you because you couldn't get close. Crow Cop with those long legs, same thing. So we'll be interested to see the next chapter of this one. I don't think we've ever heard the last of it. And like you said, what can Dana say to Jake? Like, he doesn't own him. He does not under contract and do what he wants to do.
Yep.
That's that. Last segment of the day, Brandon, something you brought to my table. I thought it was a great subject. We've kind of spent the last year talking about things that have happened. Let's talk about what's going to happen, right? One of the subjects I was thinking about today was kind of most disrespected champion. I think that kind of falls into this kind of category of what we expect in 2022. who's going to be champion at the end of the year, what people are going to step up and become contenders. You already mentioned in a segment earlier, Hamzat Chimaev. That's a guy that people, he spent a lot of the year out with COVID, came back, got a big knockout. He's now back in everybody's, tongue as far as like a prospect. Another guy, same weight class, Sean Brady, I expect big things out of. He just went to Fury Grappling, won a big grappling tournament, grappling match. He's been dominant inside the UFC cage, moving up the rankings. Sean O'Malley, I expect big things out of. Let me know some of the things you expect us to keep an eye on this year. People you think might be champion by the end of the year, different promotions, people we need to talk about. Mentioned Sergio Pettis earlier with the whole Grand Prix coming up in Bellator. What are some of the things you're excited about coming up in 2022?
Like I said, what I'm looking forward to is, like I said, I'm looking for that Bellator Bantamweight Grand Prix. I think it's going to be amazing. With all the guys that they have on there. So, like I said, that's definitely one thing. Another thing in Bellator, which is a fight that I've been waiting for like 2 years for, and it looks like it's finally going to happen. But Chris Cyborg versus Kat Zingano. I don't know who I'm picking. I don't know who I'm picking because I'm a fan of both of them. I think they're both just amazing ladies.
That one actually kind of falls in the whole Juliana Pena, Amanda Nunes thing, right? Like, because
it doesn't. Well,
it does because we I slept on Pena for the last year talking about that fight. Kat's been calling out Cyborg for a while the same way, and people have always talked about it like Cyborg's the greatest of all time. Kat Zingano has the potential to pull off an upset the same way that Pena did. So I do think it's similar whether you do or not. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, the reason why I don't think it is because according to you, remember Juliana Pena wasn't beating anybody. She went 2-2, but Kat Zingano has been winning fights. So she's been so I'm saying she's been fighting. She's been active. Unlike Pena, who's kind of been hurt and she's been on and off. That's the only reason why I think it's a little different. And then plus two, remember, according to you, Juliana Pena did not deserve it. Kat Zingano's been getting up W, so to me, she does deserve it.
I want to know when Dana White signs Juliana Pena either to the rematch versus Nunes or gives Durandamy a chance, because Durandamy punished Juliana Pena just the year before.
That's true. But those are really the two. I want to say those are probably the two main things in Bellator. UFC wise,
what about the Bellator Grand Prix that we haven't had finished yet? We still haven't seen the finish to the light heavyweight one.
Oh, I think
that's Nemkov's to lose?
I think Corey Anderson's gonna get that W, but hey, what do I know? I don't know anything out here.
Have they announced when we're gonna see that yet?
No, they haven't announced that yet. I think maybe it could be either February or March is when I think they're trying to get it. But nothing's official yet.
Well, while I got you on Bellator, what about AJ McKee? Are we going to see him back in the cage? Because he's still fighting about the fact that he fought out his contract and they added the Champions Clause, which adds 3 more fights to it. He's talking about even going in boxing at this point. Yeah. What happens with AJ McKee?
I think eventually he will get a fight. Like you said, I think the thing with them is that they're all about it. They just want more money. So I think eventually Scott Coker and probably will pay him some more money. I'm saying I can see him. I don't really know if he will defend that title. I can see him maybe challenging for the 155 title. I know he really wants to do that, so they might give him that. That could be something that maybe they meet in the middle.
Be both Pitbull brothers.
Yeah, I honestly another thing too where I think a lot of people might be sleeping on, but I wouldn't be surprised if Sean O'Malley, man, says deuces to the UFC, man. I think he fights out his contract and he kind of sees what happens in the free agency market, because like I said, you see what he's doing. He's not really fighting top 15 fighters except for his last fight. But I think he's gonna try to just take it easy, fight his contract out, and I think he's gonna try to test the free agency, because if you listen to previous interviews, he talks about testing his star power, seeing where it is. He wants to know where it is and everything like that. So he's also said multiple times, why fight a top contender if I get paid the same to fight a nobody? Exactly. So that's why that's why I could see him potentially leaving the UFC if the money's right somewhere else. And then of course, the big thing that everyone wants to know about free agency, Kayla Harrison, where's she gonna go? Bellator, UFC, or she's gonna stay in the PFL. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. Like I said, if I had my way, she'll be in Bellator. But I just want her to go wherever she's gonna get the most money because, like I said, this is prize fighting.
I'd like to see her in Bellator because I think there's more fights for her.
There is, exactly.
But
that's why
I feel like Dana's going to outbid for a fighter he's barely going to use.
Yeah. I want to say those are really the main things that I'm kind of looking forward to in 2022. And I guess one more thing is, will John Jones ever step back into the cage? That's another thing. Will that guy ever step back in the cage this year? Will this be the year? Will we see John Jones make his heavyweight debut?
I'll troll you even further than that. What happens first in 2022? John Jones fights or gets arrested?
Yeah.
I mean, it's sad, but it's real. Let me ask you another question.
All right.
There's a lot of champions across the world. Let's stick to UFC. Which UFC champion is the most vulnerable going into 2022? It kind of piggybacks on who I thought the most disrespected champion was. I personally think the most disrespected champion is Charles Oliveira. I think a lot of people think he's beatable, despite the fact he's had this huge run and going on to win the championship, and then defending it against Dustin Poirier, who rocked him early, but he came back and still got him late and subbed him, or had the elbow drops, as you talked about. But out of all the champions in the UFC, who do you think is the most vulnerable, and who do you think we might see a new champion as far as like those divisions go?
Oh, that's easy, man. You know what it is. I mean, I like him. He's a good dude.
Peter Yan and Aljamain Sterling.
No, stop it. No, man. It's got to be light heavyweight, man. 205.
You think Glover's vulnerable?
Yeah. Hey, man. You know he's up there in age. As you
think Gary can knock him off?
As you like to say, he's up there in age. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, dude's as old as me, but yeah.
I mean, now I'm not saying Yuri's the guy that's going to take him, but it could be maybe the person after Yuri, because he might be able to get past Yuri, but then maybe I think his next fight is where it is, because like I said, man,
they Rockets maybe.
Is that I'm saying, man, I'm saying you still got Rakic that could be next. Heck, man, it could be Anthony Smith who gets that rematch back. You know. So that's what I'm saying, man. I mean, then plus two, you say you still got other people coming up and at 205 as well. So I just think Glover is probably the most vulnerable of the UFC champions.
I think there's a couple vulnerable champions. I think even though Volkanovski looked amazing against Ortega, I think if he did run that trilogy back with Max, even though he's beat Max twice, I thought Max beat him the second time. I think Max looked great his last few fights. I think Max could knock off Volkanovski. I obviously think Peter Yan would dominate Sterling if they ever did fight this year. I don't know that Sterling fights this year. I think he finds ways to hold on to the belt. I mean, look, the guy had a neck.
Leave that man alone. Let him heal up, all right?
Look, the guy had a neck injury, and he says he doesn't feel the power back in his hands, even though he feels healthy. If you don't feel the power in your hands, you don't feel 100%. Hopefully those nerves start firing again, and he does get back in the cage, because I love watching Funkmaster fight. But if he fights Peter Yan again, I think that's a bad matchup for him. I think Peter Yan was taking over. Sterling said he was taking over, like his own words. So if he does fight again, I think Peter Yan beats him, especially the way he looked against Corey Sandhagen. If you watch Battleground, we debated that subject on the first episode of Best Boxer in MMA, even though Holly Holm just came out and kind of crapped all over our episode by saying that's not such a thing. Thanks, Holly. I think you guys should still go watch Battleground, by the way. But thanks, Holly. I think she's just mad that we disqualified her because she's a real boxer, Brandon. I think she's mad.
Maybe.
But then I'll go over flyweight. I know Brandon Moreno looked great against Davison Figueiredo the second time, but he arguably lost the first time if it wasn't for that point deduction. And there's a guy sitting there. I don't know why he's not number 2. He's sitting at number 3, but Alex Pantoja has already beaten Brandon Moreno a number of times. Once officially and then once on tough. If they fight again, I think Brandon Moreno is going to have a hard time. They've obviously both gotten worlds better since tough. Moreno continues to evolve. And then the last champion I'll say is vulnerable is probably, I hate to even say this because I love her so much, but Rose Namajunas. And as great as Rose is, she fights a wrestler like Carla. You saw how Wei Lee kept taking her down. If Carla takes her down and lays on her for 5 rounds, we have a new champion. And I think if Rose doesn't tighten up that takedown defense to go with her talented striking and kickboxing, that obviously working with Pat Barry and everybody else she has, and I think Rose is a little bit vulnerable. And I guess Juliana Pena as well, but I'm going to give her respect. I'll see what she can do. I think if she fights Amanda again, I think Amanda wins 9 out of 10 times, but maybe she does know the roadmap to beat Amanda. Maybe she does know if you're aggressive with Amanda, maybe you can do stuff, because a lot of people fight Amanda going backwards. Juliana came forward. We saw the same thing with Kayla Harrison when she fought Taylor Gallardo, and that Kayla obviously dominated her, but the first couple seconds when Taylor came forward, it kind of shocked her a little bit and threw her off her game. They fight again. Maybe she expects it. Maybe Amanda does something different. But I think if Juliana Pena fights Durandamy, who people keep forgetting about, I think Durandamy could be the new champ. So it's all about matchups. It's all about length. I mean, Durandamy is another one of those tall, lanky fighters fighting at a lower weight class. And she doesn't have any interest really going back to 145 pounds. So at 135 pounds, she's very dangerous. Those are some things I'm looking forward to as far as new champions. One of the things I'm really looking forward to is seeing what happens with Khamzat Chimaev. I was one of the dudes last year towards the end of the year talking about his star was shining. And I know especially Sergio was kind of pooping all over it. He's like, this guy hasn't fought anybody. He's nobody. He hasn't fought anybody. Well, he went out against Li Jiang and just dominated him. He's dominated everybody he's been in there with. And I would love to see him match up with somebody a little bit higher ranked, maybe a veteran like a Stephen Thompson or Neil Magny. Neil Magny's wanted that smoke for a while. I don't see anybody ready to fight Sean Brady. So maybe Sean Brady and Chimaev would be a really good matchup, especially since Kevin Lee's now out of the promotion. And that
Eagle
fight
FC,
isn't there.
baby.
What'd you say?
Said Eagle FC.
Is he fighting?
Yeah. Him.
Diego Sanchez. Isn't he suspended?
No.
Or is that only in the UFC?
I think. I mean, all I know
he had a USADA suspension.
Yeah, I mean, all I know is that he's fighting Diego Sanchez. I think it's March 11th. Eagle FC.
Oh my God.
One at 165.
I hope Diego just goes away. Like I feel so bad, but at the same time, he has a choice in life to fight or not fight. That's his choice. We can't make it for him.
Oh yeah, and by the way, too, and Kevin Lee, you know how he's getting paid? Crypto. That's how he's getting paid. In crypto.
I'm not gonna go in that rant. That's for another show. But anybody jumping into crypto at this point, you might want to pay attention to the news a little bit, because the governments, the United States, Russia, the EU, everybody's going heavy into taxing crypto and finding ways to trace it and tax it. And once it becomes a taxable income, and especially because crypto's used a lot to like traffic money, launder money. Once it's become traceable and tracking and taxable, then the value of crypto goes to the bottom. And a lot of people investing in it now, like if you invested in Bitcoin years ago and you're now like at $50,000 of Bitcoin, then congratulations. Sell now while you can get out. But that's just my advice. Pay attention to the news. Don't listen to me. Do your own research. But you might want to get out while it's hot, because it's in danger zone right now. These governments are trying to get their money, and they don't play around with that. So that's that. That's 2022. We kept the episode under an hour, Brandon. Virtual high five. And next week we'll make some picks. We'll get the episode a little bit smoother. We're trying to work on this new format. We're trying to look at like 3 different subjects to talk about, something hot in the news, something probably more opinion-based, and something else going on. And then we're going to get you the picks and get everything going. Head over to the FightersFirst.shop. FightersFirst.shop. Get the Mechanic Collection. You see him rocking that dope hoodie. Get that. We also have the zip-up hoodie with that on the back as well. Obviously, Art of MMA, the logo tee. I'm going to be coming out maybe this month, definitely by next month, some new Art of MMA merchandise. It's time to get a refresh for 2022. I don't want to just put something out there that, just for change's sake. So I'm trying to come up with something dope. If I do, it would definitely hit the shop. I don't hesitate. I wasn't supposed to launch the Dynamite Kid collection probably for a few more days or a week or so, but I came up with a couple cool designs. Brian Wynn Billington signed off on them. They're in the shop. We're good to go. Let's go. Go shop. Go get the Dynamite Kid collection. Obviously, one of the best to ever do it if you're a professional wrestling fan. He's your favorite wrestler's favorite wrestler. People looked up to him. Obviously, over on Slamtown, we did an episode called "The Dynamite Kid Effect" a couple months ago, about kind of like how people follow in his footstep for the detriment sometimes for the benefit. Me and Dan Bakley talked about that. It's a new year, folks. We got stuff all across the network. I'm sure Brandon and Tim are going to be coming out with it. When's your next episode of Kicking It?
Next week.
So next week, stay tuned for Kicking It. Dan's got more episodes coming of Cage My IQ, talking about fights. I'm sure he'll start up next week when the fight cards start up with him and Jim and Miles and all those guys over there. I think I'm speaking for Brandon. We're happy to be back. Happy to be talking about some of this fight stuff. With the fight start rolling next week, we'll have a lot more to talk about. So we'll get into that. Of course, next week is going to be one of the fight night cards. So we'll jump into that. Giga versus Cater going at it. Right after that, we got Ngannou and Gon. We got Moreno and Figueiredo. So we got a lot of picks to make. It's my year. I got to get it back on top and buy myself a T-shirt instead of buying Brandon's T-shirt and Dan a T-shirt. I'd buy myself a T-shirt or, whatever. Anyway, head over to fightersfirst.shop. Brandon, any last words for the folks at home?
Hey, man. Hey, guys, just remember, like, subscribe, tell your friends about it, leave a comment, join just join, man, interact with us. Let us know what you're thinking. And, yeah, man, like I said, let's keep on growing the community. Let's make this year better than last year.
Oh, one last note. I know on the last episode I mentioned the end of Art of MMA, the podcast, beginning Art of MMA, the show. Yeah, it is no longer Art of MMA, the podcast. It's just Art of MMA. Just simply Art of MMA. Not complicating anything. It is what it is. It's just Art of MMA. I would like to revamp the show with a new intro and a new everything. I love the way things look right now on your screen right now. I think I've gotten good feedback of what you guys think the show has kind of turned into. I'm always looking to make it better, though. But we're not going to do it NXT 2.0. We're not going to turn around and just scrape everything and turn Brandon into developmental and turn him into
Carmelo Hayes, baby, the A champion,
if I could come Carmelo to replace you, absolutely.
Yeah.
If I can't, then I think we should keep something that's not broken and keep rolling on. By the way, Carmelo, if you ever want to be a guest and substitute for or myself, I don't care. Brandon can.
You should go get your boy Grayson Wilder. That's the next big thing.
First of all, I think he would be awesome on a podcast because he knows how to talk. I don't know about his ring skills, but he knows how to talk. I'm looking forward to seeing him and AJ tear it down. But that's that. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Art of MMA. We're happy to be back. We hope you had a happy new year. And we're looking forward to 2022. We hope you are too. For the Mechanic Brandon Catino, I'm Mike Ginn, and we're out.